Welcome to another episode of Bourbon and Rum. This is a podcast of two brothers from opposite ends of the spectrum. My name's Kent. I'm a rum drinker, and I'm from the left side of the aisle.
And I'm Kyle. I like bourbon and tend to be a little more conservative. Join us as we explore this experiment. Can two brothers from different sides of the political spectrum actually have a civil conversation and celebrate our differences?
What are you drinking?
Well, I am drinking a cocktail today. I'm drinking a Woodford Reserve Rye Old Fashioned pre-mixed cocktail. You know, Woodford Reserve started in the early 1800s in Versailles, Kentucky, part of the Pepper Distillery, later bought by Brown Forman. Brown Forman's, one of the largest spirit companies in the world now. They have a lot of other brands, including Jack Daniel's, Old Forester, but Woodford Reserve kind of came in the market in the mid-90s. But the reason I'm drinking this cocktail is we had a big party last night. We had a bunch of folks over, and I made pre-mixed cocktails to make it a little bit easier. But I did it in the fashion of, there's one of our favorite steakhouses in the area. They have a Woodford Reserve Rye old-fashioned, barrel-aged old-fashioned. And I use a similar mix. Now, obviously it didn't barrel age, but that stuff is so good. And the thing about this steakhouse, and you've been to restaurants like this, I kind of put restaurants in two buckets. Do they measure their pours, or do they just flip the bottle up and count it out and just let it fill up a glass? This place is the latter. I mean, you get a rum Coke there, you're getting half a bottle of rum in your glass. I mean, that's you're going to pay a lot of money for the cocktail, but I hate it. You spend $20 on a drink and they're sitting there measuring every last drop. This place, they just pour it big. So about two of these at Bob's, and you're going to need an Uber for sure.
So how do they do the pre-mix? Do they have it like in a pitcher somewhere, or?
They've got about 10 barrels that they store in the back room, but they wind up pouring them into bottles, and then that way they can pour them quick.
I was picturing like the chocolate fountain at a wedding reception. Like you just walk by and fill your glass.
Drop like a water jug. Yeah, exactly.
I am drinking a Ron Centenario, 7-year from Costa Rica.
Ooh, nice.
And I read up on, I had not read before, but I did after I bought the bottle. They started in like 1990 something, so they're fairly recent. Their claim to fame is that they use Scotch whiskey barrels to age the rum in.
Oh. Which
is a little bit interesting, and I don't know that I would have said from tasting it, well, doggone, they use Scotch whiskey barrels.
Yeah.
But there's a little hint of the smoky in it.
Yeah, that's really
It's
different.
Nice. They also do, on a pretty large scale, what's called Solera aging, and they've got a big stack of barrels, and they put new rum in the top barrel, and they draw out from the bottom, and, it takes years to work its way through. And so the bottom barrel, when they tap that's like 20 years old. It's not all 20 years. It hasn't all been sitting in that barrel for 20 years, but every drop has kind of made its way through the cycle. And I think the benefit of that is that it also is really consistent. It's always going to be about the same. So
yeah,
it's tasty. It's 7 years. It's nice light color. Spanish style, very crisp. It's very nice. Well, we suggested for a topic today, kind of, and I don't know how we exactly want to frame the question. What does each party need to do to, I don't know, what's the test there? To reach out to others, to persuade other people? What do each party need to do to win this election? I don't know where you want to go with that, how specific you want to be.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking a little bit about like, well, what would it take
Mm,
for each candidate, and it's possible that neither candidate. I mean, if you set the ground rules that, what would it take? Well, the reality is it's probably impossible that either candidate would give us what we're looking for.
right.
But it's kind of one of these scenarios you got to imagine. Okay, anything's possible. These people could change. Very unlikely, but they could.
Yeah. Um, yeah. And the weird thing is that it's not you and I who determine this this
Yeah,
election.
right.
I I literally can't conceive of being undecided at this point. But
Yeah.
I I don't know. I'll confess this. Like it's a throwaway because it wasn't really that possible. But I could have imagined a scenario 9 months ago where Nikki Haley picks up momentum and sets Trump aside, and Biden steadfastly refuses to step out of the way. I could have seen myself in play. Again, that's an easy one to say, yeah, and if hell had frozen over, and maybe the implausibility of that in itself is part of the statement about this. What would
Yeah.
have to happen, but that could have happened to me.
Well, and I think you raise a good point in that, like, what it would take for us might be different than what it would take for a lot of folks. I mean, like the stuff I care about, there's probably a lot of people that don't care about that.
Right.
And I think the same is probably the case for you. But hey, it's our podcast, so we got to explore it about ourselves, not everybody else.
Yeah, because we don't have any undecided people in our midst. We'll have to roll with
Pretend
our
you're
whole thing.
undecided. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to trap you with your own words, but after the debate between Trump and Harris, you were complimentary of her kind of closing argument. I'm not trying to paint you into a
Yeah,
corner,
no,
but
it's good.
there were things about that resonated with you, or at least that didn't set your teeth on edge.
Yeah, I mean, I thought she did a good job. She did what she needed to do in the debate. She didn't come off as angry. She didn't give the Al Gore eye rolling routine. She didn't come across as overly negative. And the message I thought was a positive one. I thought in some of what set off Trump as she was needling him like a younger person needling an old man. I mean, that's what it felt like a little bit. And so, yeah, I thought stylistically she did well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my problem with her, and like I said, not everybody probably cares about this kind of stuff, but my problem with her is more around I don't think she's put a lot of thought into her positions. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of positions. And while she's not like mean, I mean, she seems like a nice enough lady. I mean, some people may think that, but I don't think she's like overly like a lot of people didn't like Hillary because she was not, not the most bubbly one in the crowd. Um,
Right.
but at the same time, I don't feel like she's very dynamic. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit, when she starts talking about what could be and what wasn't and all this, it's a little cringy when she starts trying to talk well stylistically. And I guess when I was thinking about this morning, and it's like there's Democrats that okay, I may disagree with, but I can see there's elements about it that I think are great and I would support. And I think about too, like, if you think about positionally and stylistically, I think of positions like Bill Clinton. He is regardless of what you like about the guy or don't like the guy personally, he's a smart guy and he's a thoughtful guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's thought heavily about these positions. He's got ideas. He's a thinker. And then I think about like Obama, he was really good from a stylistic standpoint. I mean, he was a great orator. He could speak and you may disagree with the guy, but man, he sounds, you know.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's doable. Unfortunately, I don't know that she's got either of those, and they're probably not going to come. And that's my thing. A lot of people probably don't care about it.
Sure. I mean, if I were going to defend that position, I guess I would say, policy light. Obviously, I think that's a fair critique. Part of it, though, I'll add a third dimension. You've got your policy, you've got your stylistic, and then some of it's just game theory calculus, right?
Yeah.
Like there are enough people that are opposed to Trump on purely stylistic grounds.
Yeah.
I will lump a lot under that umbrella, the stylistic, that just find him repugnant. Like there's people that you can get on that measure alone. So why let policy get in the way of that?
Right.
Like the more you put stakes in the ground about we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, the Democrats aren't going to leave you no matter what. So you're playing for that narrow margin in the middle of this country. That's we take the 48 off one side and the 48 off the other side, and we're fighting about 3.5% of the population.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It might be an absence of having thought through it to the level of Bill Clinton's analytic approach to things. I think there's probably more there than you're seeing, but that might just be
It may be
a
intentional.
decision,
Yeah.
a strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. And, based on how the electorate votes now, that the style, I mean, for many people, it is a popularity contest. So, if you get too much in the weeds on policy, maybe she feels like she's going to lose people. But and I don't know. I didn't think she thought she was running until a few months now. Now I think
Right.
you're, I don't put words in your mouth, but I think you think this was a long time coming. And then I'm thinking, well, if it was a long time coming, I mean, wouldn't you position yourself a little better? I don't know.
Maybe. I think a long time, like 5 or 6 months. I think after the first,
I liked
not
it.
a,
What was that press conference they had with Joe a couple of weeks ago? And he's like, "Oh, we are lockstep on everything." Like, she's in every meeting. Like, come on, stop.
yeah. Let's take that same rubric and apply it, for the other side. What I think the Republicans need to do. I think that Trump is this enigma because the thing that, I've made no secret. I think that, again, I will use style or stylistic in a very broad way. I think his indications of his character and temperament, you've described it as inarticulate or not getting the point across. I think he recklessly uses inflammatory language. I don't think he even intentionally, we've talked about this too. There's this, is he a evil mastermind or is he a doofus? I mean, because you can't be both. And I think that he says things out of expedience rather than some master take over the world kind of plan. But I think, something came up this week. There's the inevitable comparison on the left that, he's just like the Nazis because X, Y, or Z, and you fill that in. And, I think that that's really overplayed. I wonder,
just
sometimes
like the Nazis, other than the extermination camps. I mean, everything but.
Precisely. No, I mean, I think, but the speeches where he referred to immigrants as vermin, that is, so, if you want to know what to do, for me, no policy position that he could ever have would allow me to countenance that. I don't care if one side said we're going to do everything wrong and he had everything right. That's a hard line for me. I don't know whether he is deliberately trying to mirror really inflammatory language from history or if he's just not careful about it. Either way, I think that's in my mind that whole thing is disqualifying. It's a hard pass for me.
So we had this big party yesterday, and one couple that was here, I didn't get any sling with her on it. I wish I had, because she used to be with the Secret Service and she was in Trump's detail.
Oh, wow.
She's not a political type, but she's like nicest guy you'd ever meet. Like very gracious to everybody. The family's very kind, like just nice people. And it's like, is there anybody right or left that's like, well, that Trump, he seems like a nice guy, like he doesn't come off that way at all. And so there is this intentional inflammatory element. Many of the supporters are like, well, because he's a fighter. He goes and gives it to people. But it's like the guy is a genuinely nice guy if you talk to him, but he comes off inflammatory and like a jerk to everybody. And I think there may be something to your point about expediency. We were arguing about something years ago when he was in office, and I was like griping about the media, like every media outlet's negative, it's 95% negative. They're giving them all kinds of crap. And you're like, Kyle, that's the reason he won. He gets them all fired up and he uses that to his advantage. And that's what got him over the goal line. And I'm thinking, oh, you're right. I mean, there is an intentionality of pissing people off, which I think your point is she's trying to walk a line of, oh, I don't want to piss. And it's like his is, no, I want to piss everybody off.
Right.
And, if you got the two of them in a room and you weren't talking about politics, who knows? They may be very pleasant people, but you're not going to see that on TV.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, just to, it sounds like I'm just hammering, but the inflammatory language, the things that I find just unacceptable, even more than I would direct that as a criticism of him. I don't think it's some grand strategy. I think it's expediency. The thing that saddens me is that it works, right? Like, and I think that doesn't get enough play. I think the media clutches the pearls and he said this and he said that, which, I mean, I think it's obnoxious, but he says that because it gets him the results that he wants. And that's a sad telling thing about our country. I really think it is. I think that there are some kinds of things, characterization of other human beings as less than human. I think that's inherently wrong. And I understand the temptation to do it. You feel like, the other side's out to get you there. It's never okay, I guess would be my point. So, what would the Republicans have to do to win me over? You'd have to take Donald Trump off the ticket.
Well, I mean, back to the vermin discussion. I feel like the left hears that and they extrapolate that to every hardworking migrant that's coming across the border is vermin. And this is all this negative stuff. But then there was this thing this week about these gang members that came over and they'd taken over these apartments, what city it is. And CNN was like, well, there's not that many. There's just a couple of apartment buildings they took over. Like, oh, okay. So like there's only a couple of apartment buildings that are like dominated by some crazy gang. And,
right. How many apartment buildings in this country, though, are dominated by criminals who were born and raised and have a social security number?
Oh, yeah. You bring up a very valid point, and how it's this slippery slope. And I think many on the left have this, and that's where this goes down to this Nazi thing, like, well, these people are subhuman and they're all the same. When I hear that, I think when many people on the right hear that, they think, no, this is somebody that's going to protect us because there's millions of people coming across and most of them are great folks, but there is somebody that wants to do me and my family harm. I have no qualms about somebody referring to them as vermin. Hell yeah. I don't want somebody messing up my family because of ideology. But I guess all I'm saying is I think some of that language, it all resonates with, it's not because I hate people or I hate migrants, but I don't hold in high regard somebody that's coming here for bad purposes. And there are people that have.
There are, admittedly. It seems like an odd connection to me because I'm not convinced that there are bad people among immigrants at a higher rate than there are bad people in the population. Maybe I could be wrong. I'm not terribly informed about the border. And this is a good example because I find the way that Trump talks about it so off-putting that I literally find myself being like, hell yeah, open the border. I don't care. I love everybody. My reaction to that approach is so visceral. I feel very much not threatened by immigration. My job is not threatened by immigration. My family's not threatened by immigration. The likelihood that I'm going to be a victim of violent crime to, again, somebody with a social security card in good standing is way higher for me than it's. Part of that's where I live. Part of that's the community that I live in. I know that. I know that's not the case for everybody.
No offense, Kent, but I don't think illegal aliens are coming in and taking over university jobs. So yeah, you're probably good.
It's true. I think that colors it too. I don't think that explains it, but I think it colors it.
I'm
I
reloading, by the way. This is too
Okay,
good a
it's
conversation.
probably wise. Yeah, I've made myself clear on this. I think you
No,
heard me.
it's good. I mean, it's a good point. Talking to a friend of mine that he brought up the vice presidential debate. He's like, "What do you think of that?" And I voiced my opinion. And it was different from his opinion. And then three of us all had these varying opinions. And he just made the comment: people can all watch the same thing or hear the same thing and have wildly different opinions. I mean, when you
Yeah,
hear Trump, you think this son of a bitch is saying these horrible things about people that I care about. I hear him and I say, this guy's going to protect me and my family. Like I can see the origin of both of them.
yeah.
But back to our
It's
original point, it's like, what do you want? Well, we don't all hear things the same.
Yeah, that's true. So setting aside my um, personal revulsion at the person of Donald Trump, what would it take? I think it's interesting that what have we been talking for half an hour here, and policy has not really been, other than your statement of a relative absence of policy hard points from Kamala, right? And now, after bitching about Trump for this whole time, now if I'm going to have to call out, the interesting thing is that if you took the person veneer off of Donald Trump and you look at his policy, not the rhetoric, but the policy, I think he's wrong about foreign relations. I think he's wrong about NATO. I think he was wrong about only working on corporate taxes. And I think that cutting corporate taxes without some guardrails really just wound up shoveling money to shareholders. But in general, lower corporate taxes to be more consistent with the rest of the world. That makes sense. I don't want to have a huge incentive for companies to go offshore. Of all of the Republicans that we might have gotten when we elected him in 2016, his policy approach is probably less far afield from me than most of the other ones would have been.
So you're a neocon.
I wouldn't go there, but
Well, what did you think of the Abraham,
tell me what that was again.
where the UAE, like Arab countries, normalization of relations with Israel and Arab countries that saw an economic benefit of
Yeah,
a
I think
relation
that's good. I think that's good. Did he do that?
Yeah, they
He,
brokered those.
yeah,
Jared was the lead on that stuff, but they were close to getting Saudi Arabia, which would have been an interesting play.
yeah.
Hey, this is totally off the subject, and maybe our listeners could give me some input, but we'll be talking, and I'm trying to come up with other adjectives besides interesting, because I feel like we say interesting all the time. But I was
Yeah.
looking at the source, and what we're talking about is interesting. I'm sorry. It's like there's some website that tracks like the number of F bombs in various movies. I think The Big Lebowski is one of the top F-bomb movies, but maybe people start tracking the number of times they say interesting. But anyways, this is interesting. It is interesting stuff. But no, I mean,
I'm a little embarrassed that I didn't know what the Abraham Accords was.
well, but that honestly speaks to the differences in how you hear things. How you hear and perceive what goes on is probably different than how I hear and perceive what goes on. I think
Yeah.
I could debate you on all the stuff you talked about that you disagree with, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, I like his policies. I like where he's coming from. You don't. That I'm okay with. Like if our country was a place where, well, this person's got these policies and I like them, and this person's got these policies and I don't like them, that's like, that makes sense. I just feel like where we are is like, well, I like this guy. I don't like that guy. And it's like, do you even know who you like or who you like? All we know is what their persona is.
Yeah.
I've had that conversation with people too. Like, well, you don't like Trump. Well, he sounds like a jerk. And then, I talked to somebody that actually met him and they say he's really nice. And then these people that come off as really nice in their public persona, they may be a complete jackass, but you'd never know that,
Yeah. I think maybe part of the reason that we've got such a problem, that policy really is in the back seat. And part of it is that honestly, the differences are not that great. I mean, this is not Herbert Hoover versus Franklin Roosevelt. This is not fundamental changes in the way that we approach government. The differences that we have today are not as great as Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan. Really, like
Yeah.
that was a far bigger philosophical, political difference than we have today.
Part of it is the people on both sides that go crazy right or left. It reminds me of an example that I used to be on Twitter. I'm not anymore. But something I found was like I had tweeted something about it was some political, like right wing. Yeah, I don't have a feed full of liberals. Just FYI, it was
Right.
more the right wing folks. But there was some right winger guy on there, and I would post a barbecue picture and I'd get like 3 views. Right? Nobody cares about the barbecue. And I posted something. There was some huge argument. You know, there's batshit crazy people on the right and the left, and these people are incapable of governance. And I said something like, if our country is filled with these crazy people on the right or left, we'd be like Afghanistan. And I said Afghanistan just because I'm thinking like these tribal countries that they can't agree on anything.
Mm-hmm.
They can't govern themselves. Well, I replied on some Yahoo's account who had a lot of followers. And I don't know, he picked up on my post somehow. And he's like, here's some idiot with this stupid comment. And he puts it out there. There were like 100,000 views inside of like a minute, and everybody's like, he's an idiot. Have you been to Afghanistan? You're not in the military. I'm like, gosh, yeah, I'm good. I deleted my account. But that's the thing. I mean, there's a lot of batshit crazy people out there, right or left.
Totally true.
I mean, we might be batshit crazy, but we don't exhibit it as much when we're talking.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other thing, it's kind of funny, the going in premise, what does the other side have to do? And it took me quite a while to get down to something substantive in policy about it. I think that's not by accident, though. Of all of the things that Trump has said that were less than insane, the idea of a deep state, it's real. And where that plays out is the administrative bureaucracy and the staff in Congress of the big committees and things like that. Like there's a whole layer of people who are unelected. The good news is that they're mostly competent and they're mostly well-intended because our country functions fine. It's not perfect, but it functions a heck of a lot better than most other countries in the world. Believe me, that is not because our elected representatives and senators and our president is a genius. The reason the country runs well is because the deep state is pretty well organized. That's also why things don't change very much. And it's also why people who are frustrated with the status quo remain frustrated with the status quo. It's like the magician, watch the hand, and over here, I'm actually running the government. It's irritating, but honestly, it's for our best.
And that's the thing. The lights are kept on, everybody's doing their thing. But the reason nothing changes that much is nobody agrees on anything. And, like the old man we used to tell us, I mean, that's a good thing. All these people that are like, well, we've got a dysfunctional Congress. No, it's very functional. Everybody disagrees with each other. Perfect. And nothing happens. If one side was in charge and they passed a new bill every week, we'd be, pretty soon you'd be a dictatorship. If one side.
No, I agree with you in that. And I'm totally comfortable with having different parties in the White House and in Congress. Like that kind of a little gridlock is not a bad thing. However, we have adopted a world where the way that we get around gridlock is we just shovel money out to both sides. And that's a problem. We can do this. We can do the deep state bureaucracy running the country smoothly and the lights stay on because every Yahoo who makes a lot of noise gets money thrown at their programs on either side. There comes a day when you run out of the spending ability to keep that going. And I do worry about that. If we ever had to make real hard choices, we'd struggle with that.
Well, I read something about how we haven't actually had a budget since like the mid 90s. Everything's just a continuing resolution.
Yeah.
It's like they can't decide on anything. And
Right.
I don't know, my whole thing about the extremes on the right or left. I mean, isn't it kind of like saying, I want to eliminate poverty? Isn't there always going to be somebody that makes the bottom of the pay scale?
There's a bottom quintile in every group of people. Yeah. What we need to do is make sure that our bottom quintile, I mean, I think you hit on something there, that maybe what we need to focus on is better definition of our objectives. Eliminate poverty. Yeah, that ain't going to happen. But if we said the bottom income quintile of our country can afford good food and the medication they need to live healthy lives,
Yeah, you can
that's
get
a
behind that.
that's a quantifiable aim, right? We have the national opposite of SMART goals. None of them are measurable or timely or
Right.
no, we want to eliminate poverty. We want to protect us from the foreigner. Like, let's put real goals behind things.
I was in a Bible study with guys years ago, and it's a bit of a conspiracy nut. He's like, "Well, there's enough money in the world, everybody could have $10 million." And I was like, "Well, that's interesting, but if everybody had $10 million, it wouldn't be worth $10 million." And it's like he could not wrap his head around that.
Right? Everybody could have $10 billion, but movie tickets are 15 grand a pop.